Well,
Yeah.
apparently around the time that Steve did that, they were in the writer's room talking about how they wanted to have this recurring nemesis character for Sheldon. And Steve mentioned that he'd been talking with me, and the writers thought that it would be fun and silly to have me play that nemesis. So Bill Prady, who was the co-creator of the show, called me and asked me if I wanted to do the job. And I honestly thought that it was one of my friends pranking me, because I never in a million years thought that I would be asked to be a reoccurring character on the most popular sitcom in the English-speaking world.
Yeah, and Wil Wheaton, your character starts off as the villain of the piece, Sheldon's mortal enemy, as Sheldon would say, Wheaton. But as the season progresses, you make peace with Sheldon and become closer to his inner circle. And what you make of the Wil Wheaton character, i.e. yourself?
I have been playing that version of myself on The Big Bang Theory for 7 seasons, 8 seasons now, 8 seasons this year. And it took me until last season to finally feel like I had the emotional and intellectual distance from the character to think of myself and the version of myself who I play as completely different people. Achieving that separation from the character has been really fun, because it's made it a lot easier for me to just commit to whatever the writers are asking me to do in that role. It's been really fun to start out as a character who was constantly antagonizing Sheldon and kind of just letting Sheldon set himself up to fall down. The way that I kind of justified all the things that I was doing back in seasons 3 and 4 is that it's sort of like asking Sheldon to pontificate about something that nobody cares about, and while he is very busy sort of showing off about how brilliant he is, I'm down tying his shoelaces together so that he's going to fall over right away. It was just like having fun with someone who was constantly letting themselves get set up. After a while, we realized that it was kind of the same joke, and it was kind of the same dramatic beat over and over again, so we changed the relationship to where we were friends, and that was really fun. It allowed me to explore, as the character on the show, a lot more things that are meaningful to me in my real life. The realities of being an adult who was a kid actor, the realities of being a really famous science fiction actor in a world that doesn't really care about that anymore. And it let us do some different things that we wouldn't have gotten to do if we had just maintained that I was the nemesis. But in an episode that aired a few weeks ago, Sheldon and Wil Wheaton have become arch enemies yet again, and I am so excited to see what happens in the future, and I hope that the writers will continue to explore that relationship so that we can get back to antagonizing one another.
And Will, the Big Bang Theory, in terms of production, I presume it's a huge operation, but what amazes me is that most of the viewers' favourite scenes are cast in 2 small apartments either side of each other, which you could find in any modern apartment complex in any town, village in the world. And does this add to the bit of realism to a show where you imagine all these brainiac scientists would be super rich living in these mansions?
Well, I think that one of the reasons that the setting is less important is that the show at its heart is about the characters, and it's about the relationships and the friendships and now the marriages among the different characters. And I think that everybody has somebody in their life who is like one of the characters or more than one of the characters. And one of the things I consistently hear from audiences is coming from people who are older than me, coming from my parents' generation, telling me that they're so excited to watch this show because they finally understand their nerdy children and their nerdy children's nerdy friends.
Yeah, and Will, in terms of the weekly shoot, how does it operate during the week? When do you get your scripts, rehearsals, shoot scenes, and how long does it take to shoot one episode?
I usually get my script 1 or 2 days before we begin production on the episode. I find out that I'm going to work on the show about 2 or 3 weeks before then.
Okay.
And what happens is we go in on a Wednesday morning and we sit down at a giant conference table, and the cast and the director read the script all the way through for the writers and producers. Then we might do a little bit of rehearsal, and then over the next 4 days, we rehearse, we block out the scenes so we know where everyone's going to go, the script gets rewritten, and then on Monday, the following Monday, we usually shoot some things that just wouldn't be possible to shoot in front of an audience. Things that take place on location, or scenes that just have so many actors in them, it's going to take a lot of time to move all of the cameras around. And then on Tuesday, we go to the studio in the afternoon, we have a run-through and a rehearsal, and then the audience comes in around 6 p.m., and we start taping, and we shoot until we're done, and we're usually finished between 10 and 11 o'clock that night.
Wow. And Will, if I can start talking about some of the characters, and if I can start off with Jim Parsons, who plays Sheldon, and I suppose Jim will forever be known now for the rest of his life for the Sheldon character. Does Jim have any attributes similar to Sheldon? He strikes me, Jim Parsons, as a very intelligent man in real life as well. And what are some of your favourite stories or memories on set, or even some bloopers or funny scenes working with Jim Parsons?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the two things that Jim has in common with Sheldon, and I think they might be the only two things, he is incredibly intelligent and he is incredibly detail-oriented. I have learned so much about being a comedic actor from working with Jim. There is a huge difference between comedy and drama, and it's not just that comedy has jokes. The pacing of a script and the pacing of a scene is so specific, especially in 4-camera television shows, and it's very much like a piece of music. And I think you can compare it to jazz music, where everybody is on the same rhythm, but some people are coming out and coming forward on different beats. And Jim, I have heard multiple times describe a scene in musical terms, and I've heard him say, I can't hear the melody in this scene, or I feel like the music is a little off in this scene, and we rework it until it's really solid. There aren't any, I can't tell you any bloopers or things like that, because Jim doesn't mess up.
Yeah.
He just doesn't make mistakes. He's so magnificently prepared, and he takes the work so seriously that I guess the thing that is most remarkable is that we can be having a conversation that has absolutely nothing to do with our characters or the scene right up until they roll the cameras, and then just switch gears, become the characters, and perform the scene. And it's because Jim is so prepared and so accomplished that we're able to do that. And it takes a lot of the pressure off, and it makes it a lot more fun to get to play with him.
Yeah, and Will, if I can bring you on to the two lovebirds of the show, Penny and Leonard, played by Kaylee Kukoc and Johnny Galiacki. And if I can start off with Kaylee, I imagine she's probably the closest in resemblance to her character. And John Galiacki, I say, comes across as a down-to-earth sort of a guy who's very chilled. And is that a fair statement? And again, what are some of your favourite fun stories on set with Kaylee and Johnny?
I think every actor needs to have something in common with their character. It is why you hire specific actors for specific roles, and it's why we're not just a bunch of interchangeable people putting on masks. The things that they have in common with their characters are things that I think as an audience we kind of take for granted. Johnny is a deeply compassionate, incredibly empathetic, thoughtful and kind person, and Kaylee is very much the same. And those are two qualities that have come out in their characters over the years that I really love. In the very early seasons of the show, Penny was portrayed really just kind of dumb.
Yeah.
And they reworked her character to make her a bit more wry and sarcastic and kind of smarting in sort of a societal and